This World War II bomber had been frozen in the Arctic for nearly 50 years. And in 1993, the team actually tried to start one of the engines. No one knew if it would even turn, or if trying might destroy it completely. It had been sitting here for decades, untouched. Until one day, the team showed up and attempted something no one thought was possible. And for a moment, it almost worked. This wasn't a recovery mission. Not yet. In 1993, this team came for one reason: to answer a question. Could this aircraft actually be saved?
You can see it. The important instruments are still in it, and they seem to be okay.
Even getting there was a problem. You see, this B-29 bomber sat deep in the Greenland ice cap, hundreds of miles north from the nearest base. The helicopter couldn't make the trip in one flight. So they created a series of refueling stations, staged across the ice, drum by drum, creating a lifeline into one of the most remote places on Earth. On board the helicopter that day, one of the expedition team members, Ouija Smith, later described it this way.
We put the helicopter together and we flew further and further out. They set out fuel cans and equipment, jacks and all that. So by the time we actually left, we would stop, refuel the helicopter, and pick up more of the gear that Rick and Tom had set out on the way.
Here we are in the helicopter, trying to get loaded. It's a little crowded at the moment.
Well, I took the video. I was the one that showed up with a camera, shooting high 8 film at the time. When we got to Thule Air Force Base, we were kind of the laughing stock of the place because it looked like Beverly Hillbillies going through the air. We had the jack strapped to the skids, and there was a 55-gallon fuel drum sitting behind my back. It was a mess.
As we watch veteran helicopter pilot Tommy Hoffman shove warbird recovery expert Gary Larkins into the helicopter, consider this. The payload capacity of a fully fueled UH-1 Huey is approximately 4,000 pounds. Does this look overloaded to you? Would you fly in this north of the Arctic Circle? Let us know in the comments. And then they saw it.
You could just see it off in the distance. And the closer we got, it was just this sad old girl that was just laying in the water.
Not scattered wreckage. Definitely not a destroyed aircraft. But something far more unsettling. It was intact. Almost as if it had been waiting. Inside, the story became even stranger. Controls still in place. The bomber's airframe still sound. This wasn't just a crash site. This was a machine frozen in time. But there was a problem. The aircraft wasn't sitting on its landing gear. 50 years earlier, it had belly landed into the ice and snow.
We looked at everything. And then we came up with a plan that we're going to lift it up and try to get the landing gear down, get the wheels down, to get it off the belly so we could see what damage they had. So getting it down onto the wheels was one step closer to being able to work on it.
So to even test it, they had to lift it back up, slowly raising the weight of a bomber that hadn't moved in decades. Standing in ice-cold water, hydraulic jacks. At times, even the helicopter had to help.
The jacks were probably the most important thing because of where it was sitting in the water. So anyway, they ended up jacking the plane up, and we put down the landing gear. It has a mechanical crank inside the plane, and you can physically crank the landing gear down. So it was still sitting on the nose, but we had gotten the wheels down. Because we could only get the rear wheels down and we couldn't lift the nose up, what we were able to do is we filled empty fuel drums with sand and we set fuel cans onto the back of the airplane until we could put enough weight where it would teeter-totter, and then we got the nose up and then put the nose wheel down.
What made this so unusual was the environment itself. The extreme cold had preserved the aircraft. Fuel systems, engines, components that would normally degrade had been locked in place, which raised a possibility that should not have existed. That after all that time, this engine might still turn?
I don't know how we picked that one. Maybe the props had the least amount of damage, although they all had damage. Look at this thing's been submerged underwater. And when we got there, we pulled all the spark plugs out. We never found any water inside the cylinders. We put oil in the plug holes, and every day we would try to move the prop more and more to try to break it loose.
And eventually, they reached the moment they came for. Not to fly it, not yet, but to answer the question. Would anything still work?
The last day, we were running out of time, and so we got on it like a teeter-totter and standing on the props until we broke it loose. I mean, we probably actually broke some piston rings at the same time, you know.
After nearly 50 years, they tried to bring it back to life.
We were able to use the battery and pump gasoline into it, and yeah, it cranked, spit, fire. It fired. It's hard to say it was really started because it didn't run for very long, but it definitely fired on a few of the cylinders and ran for a couple of seconds and was very exciting. We all laughed and it was pretty good. You know?
Now, it didn't roar. It didn't run. But for a moment, it responded. And that moment changed everything. Because it meant this wasn't just a relic. It was something more dangerous. Something that might actually be recoverable.
What they learned during the first expedition in 1993 is what brought them back the next year. But that second time, in 1994, They wouldn't just test it. They would try to bring the entire aircraft back to life.
Rebuilt engines, retuned propellers, a fresh set of tires.
And when they did that, almost everything went wrong.